So today we'll talk about Reklaim's Q4 numbers. However, before I show you their actual numbers, let's first read their management discussion and analysis document, because that will make everything much easier for us to understand, okay? Because Reklaim's numbers, in a way, got worse, okay? However, if you only look to their numbers, if you don't take a little time to understand what's happening, I think you will get to the wrong conclusions, okay? So that's why I'm starting this video reading this. So Reklaim's 2025 results reflect a deliberate decision to mark these words, okay? A deliberate decision to reinvest in product and commercial capabilities midway through the year, followed by improved operating performance exiting the year. Operating expenses increased, okay, as the company scaled internal capabilities and accelerated product development, resulting in a net loss for the year. This investment was made to support the company's transition toward a more AI-driven data ecosystem and to position the business for growth beyond historical single-digit rates. These investments were primarily concentrated in Q2 and Q3 and began to stabilize in Q4. Okay, so now that we've gone through this, let's take a look at their numbers. And by the way, this software I'm using is called Seeking Alpha. Okay, link in the description. Okay, so let's take a look now at Reklaim's Q4 numbers. So as we can see here, revenue went down when compared to the same period in 2024. Revenue went down from 1.8 million to 1.3. So I don't like to see that. And I'm trying to schedule an interview with Neil Sweeney to understand why that happened, right? Because it was a considerable drop. And I mean, if we are seeing more and more regulations coming in, arriving, emerging, I think revenue should be increasing. So I don't like to see that. But on an annual basis, quarterly revenue went down by 24.5%, right? So I definitely don't like to see that. I was expecting to see growing revenue. So revenue went down. However, when compared to the third quarter of 2025, revenue has actually gone up from 1.1 to 1.3. Gross profit went up when compared to the third quarter of 2025. However, it went down when compared to the fourth quarter of 2024, right? So gross profit went down, obviously, right? Because revenue in 2024, in the fourth quarter of 2024, was higher. So it's natural, right, to see gross profit going down. What matters for us, though, is gross profit. So, gross margin. So, gross margin in the fourth quarter of 2025 came at 80%. 80%, that's an excellent margin. A business that shows an 80% margin definitely has something special about it. Great. So, gross margin is at 80%. It got better when compared to the third quarter of 2025. However, when compared to the fourth quarter of 2024, gross margin actually went down from 83% to 80%. However, okay, gross margin went down, but I won't complain about that. Okay, 80% is an outstanding margin Congratulations, New Sweeney, for this. Operating, now I will only show you the margins, okay? That's what matters for me. We've already seen that revenue went down, so what matters now for me is whether the whole operation is improving or not. Okay, so what matters now for me is their margins, is the company's margins. So the company delivered an operating profit in the fourth quarter of 2025. They posted a 0.65% operating margin. Yes, that's a very low operating margin. However, let's always remember this business is an early stage one, right? And let's also remember that, as we've read in the beginning of this video, the company is investing. Though most of the investments were made in the previous 2 quarters, right? That's why in the third quarter of 2025, Reklaim posted an operating margin of negative 47%, because it was investing in sales. As we see here, they're selling general and administrative expenses here. In the third quarter, were bigger than their revenue. So yeah, that happened because the company was investing, right? I forgot where I was. Okay, but as I was saying, this happened. This negative margin here happened because the company was investing, and that's also why the company posted an operating margin in the second quarter of negative 17%. So, okay, that's what's important for us in the end. And well, of course, if Reklaim posted an operating margin of only 0.6%, well then, of course, the company posted a net loss, right? That's natural. As we see here, Reklaim's net loss in the fourth quarter stood at 6.9%, which was much worse than the margin we've seen in the fourth quarter of 2024. I mean, as we can see here, in the fourth quarter of 2024, Reklaim delivered a net margin of 22.6%. That's amazing. I hope the business delivers something like that again. That would be great. Especially since I own a considerable position. But okay, as we've seen, the company posted an operating loss. However, we always need to keep in mind that the company is investing. So that's why their numbers have deteriorated. That's a very hard word. What I don't know how to explain is why revenue went down. And that's what is bothering me. I mean, for me, revenue should be going up, right? But okay, in terms of balance sheet, Reklaim's net cash position was at 0.2 million in the third quarter of 2025. Now, Reklaim's net cash position is at 0.1 million. Their net debt position, is worse. However, they're not facing any problems regarding debt. We don't have that problem here. And I actually don't worry about that, because New Sweeney has said that over and over again, that he doesn't want to grow the company using debt, using leverage. He prefers to use the cash the company generates, to use profits to grow the company. He really seems to be not in this game, right? In the leverage game. So I actually don't worry about that in this case, especially since he owns 35% of the company or something like that. And finally, the company burned 0.5 million, as we can see here, right? Cash from operations, operating cash flow. So honestly, I think that's it. The numbers have deteriorated. However, we need to keep in mind that the company is investing. That's the bottom line for me. That's it for today, and see you next time.